In cooking, there are certain ingredients that are absolutely essential, and the same is true in retirement planning. Hi everyone, I'm David Scranton. Success in almost any project requires having the right ingredients, and it's true with cooking, with building, and it's certainly true with retirement planning. Some ingredients you might be able to do without, but certain ones are essential. And today we're going to identify 8 ingredients that are essential to a successful retirement plan. Goal setting and income planning, healthcare planning and tax planning, estate planning and flexibility, asset preservation, and having the right advisor. So let's start with goals. If you're like most people, you already have some idea about when you'd like to retire and what you'd like to do. So now let's start drilling down. Take those generic ideas and let's make them specific. At what age do you plan to retire? Will you stay put or downsize and move? If so, where to and when? These are the kinds of questions you need to answer when creating your goals. The second essential ingredient in a successful retirement plan is income planning. Because once you've set your goals, you probably will realize that they're mostly income-based. In other words, you're not saving up for a major purchase or leaving a major inheritance. And for most folks, it's about pursuing your passions and enjoying the lifestyle that you're accustomed to without having to worry about running out of, you guessed it, income. And that's why proper income planning is so essential. So how much income will you need? How much of that will have to come from your savings? How long will your income have to last? And how much will inflation eat away at your money? All these questions are interrelated, of course. But let's take the last 2. Underestimating the impacts of longevity and inflation, especially healthcare inflation. These are among the most common mistakes that people make when it comes to their own retirement plans. Which brings us to essential ingredient number 3, which is healthcare planning. As everyone knows, your healthcare needs typically increase as you get older. What you may not realize is that healthcare inflation increases at a much faster and a much steeper rate than the overall rate of inflation. And skyrocketing healthcare costs aren't the only challenge. Most people must also deal with restrictive insurance plans with increasing deductibles. And that includes Medicare. And what's more, Medicare provides almost no coverage for long-term care. So in short, careful healthcare planning needs to be a core component of your income plan. And the same is true of the 4th essential ingredient, and that's tax planning. As you probably know, straight withdrawals from most retirement accounts are taxed as ordinary income. That means your Social Security benefits are probably also taxed, and taxed at a rate commensurate with your total income. And as you probably know, the government requires you to take something called RMDs, required minimum distributions, from retirement accounts after age 72, which means you have to pay taxes on those distributions. And those are just a few of the complex tax issues that you're going to have to deal with in retirement. Other issues might relate to capital gains, or after you're gone, estate taxes. Which brings us to the next essential ingredient, estate planning. You know, not long ago, I did a show aimed at dispelling several common myths about estate planning. Here are the facts. Regardless of your level of wealth, you need to have a comprehensive estate plan. A will is a good start, but your plan should also include documents like an advanced healthcare directive and a financial power of attorney. See, estate planning isn't just about what happens to your money after you're gone. It's very much about helping you protect and grow your assets while you're still alive. The 6th essential ingredient you need is flexibility. And when I say flexibility, I don't mean a plan where you can change on a whim. I mean a plan you can adapt as needed, preferably with the help of an advisor. And these changes are typically based upon not headlines or market volatility, but on changes in your life. These changes might include newer modified goals, a major medical event, or a change in your risk tolerance. Which brings us to our 7th essential ingredient, protection. Think about it. If you retired in 1999, in the last 23 years, your finances have had to weather dramatic market changes, right? We started with the dot-com crash in 2000, and then the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and then the financial crisis starting at the end of 2007, beginning of 2008, which led to the Great Recession, and then the economic fallout of a global pandemic. And that's only a partial list, right? Because now, here we are again in the midst of more turmoil and more uncertainty, and the crisis in Ukraine is only partly to blame. And all of this illustrates why asset preservation is such an essential ingredient in a successful retirement plan. You need a strategy that not only helps protect you from real losses in a down market, but also from the risk of spending down your principal. Meanwhile, of course, that strategy also has to provide more reliable income that outpaces inflation, that aligns with your goals, that helps minimize your taxes, and helps meet your needs these days for up to 30 years or more of retirement. And if that sounds like quite a challenge, well, it's because it is. Which brings us to the 8th essential ingredient in a successful retirement plan, which is having the right advisor, the right financial Sherpa. Because in my experience, that means an advisor who specializes in retirement income. And usually that's somebody different from the advisor who helped you during the growth and accumulation stages of retirement planning, such as in your 30s and 40s. Because at that age, things like healthcare planning, flexibility, and even protection aren't really as essential. But all that changes once you hit sometime in your 50s, when you get to 10 or maybe 15 years outside of retirement. And now, of course, it's time to bring in my good friend, Jeff Small, president of Arbor Financial Services, a retirement income store in Melbourne, Florida. Jeff, always great to spend time with you.
And you as well, Dave.
Yeah. And, of course, now to bring in one of our favorite guests, and that's Jim Rogers, chairman of Rogers Holdings and Beeland Trust Incorporated. Jim Rogers, thanks so much for being back with us here on the Income Generation.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, but maybe I don't have, maybe Jeff just has all the answers.
I have all the answers, Jim, but I'd rather hear them from you, and so would everybody else.
Okay, you correct me if I'm wrong.
I will definitely do that. But, on that note, you make me laugh. You're funny. On that note, here we sit today. In our last conversation, a quick recap, we thought volatility was going to happen in the back half of this year, and it's happened way more recent than that. And now the market's recovered, and the undercurrent of the market is positive, even in a rising rate environment. The next question I have for you, though, is, will the Fed do the right thing and not accelerate rates too quickly and kill the market and the economy? And will they do that because of Russia invading Ukraine?
Jeff, what do you mean is the Fed going to do the right thing? They're bureaucrats, they're incompetents, they're academics. What are you talking about? I guess I've been around longer than you. All they care about is keeping their jobs. They don't care about you and me. And they think that if they print more money, everything will be okay. Yeah, they have to raise interest rates, but I assure you, Jeff, if things get messy, they'll slow down. They're amateurs.
Well, that's why you're answering the questions and I'm asking them, Jim. For that exact reason, you're very entertaining, and I think that's the correct answer. They are amateurs, and they're behind the yield curve. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm skeptical, Jim, about this this ability for them to raise rates 6 more times this year. What's your best guess? Do you think the Fed's going to pull it off, or do you think they're going to find a reason to stop?
Well, David, they should raise it 6 more times. They're far behind. I mean, they've been telling us there's no inflation for, since the beginning of time.
But the question is, as bureaucrats, will they?
We all know there's inflation. So they're behind, but I cannot imagine that they will do it 7 times this year because it will hurt too much and they will panic. They should, but I doubt if they will.
Yep, they'll find an excuse not to. That's what Jeff and I have talked about all along.
So let's switch gears here for a minute and talk about something really exciting, Jim. We know that the electric vehicle adoption rate is doubling every 14 months. And that's a global phenomenon. So is this energy's last hurrah? At some point, will energy collapse in prices in maybe 3, 4, 5 years? What's your forecast on that?
Well, Jeff, known reserves of oil have been in decline for some time. We had a bubble in fracking, which put off the problems with energy supplies. Now the war, of course, has made it worse, but no, there are going to be continued problems in the hydrocarbons business, oil and gas, for some time to come because known reserves are declining. Yes, fracking will help us, but now everybody knows that fracking was a bubble and you got to pay your bills.
Is that even true is that true if Trump gets reelected? I'm teasing you. Is that true even if President Trump gets reelected in 2024?
Wait, it doesn't matter who's the president in 2024. That's not going to make suddenly more gas and oil reserves to suddenly be in the ground. Whoever, if the president of Exxon is elected president, it's still not going. That's not going to make more gas and oil in the ground. We have an ongoing problem, and it gets worse, Jeff, because everybody is down on coal, so we close the coal mines. Well, fine, that's okay if that's what you want, but that means less energy. Then you close the nuclear power plants. That's okay, but that means less energy.
I know you have predicted for a while a long-term bear market in the United States, but commodities you've been relatively bullish on. Is that part of the reason why you've been bullish on commodities? Because of limited supplies that are becoming more and more apparent?
Well, no, of course, whenever supply goes down, whatever it is, and demand either goes up or stays the same, it means you're going to have higher prices. I mean, David, nobody has become a farmer. The average age of farmers in America is 58. The average age of farmers in Japan is 66. I could go on and on. I mean, you know how to, I suggest you learn how to drive a tractor, both of you.
That's a great idea, Dave. Why don't we just go buy, a couple 100 acres and start planting?
There you go. That's great. Hey, you run a boat, fly an airplane, just driving a tractor should be easy after all that.
Buy more than 200 acres. You'll be really, really, really rich.
Not a bad idea, Jim. Not a bad idea. But with all this stuff going on, and Ukraine being the largest wheat producer, the third, largest wheat producer, and Russia being the fifth largest, we know that there's going to be significant depressions in those countries. And what's the reverberating effect going to be on our markets? Even though the current uptrend of the market, the undercurrent is up, what do you see happening in relation to the geopolitical issues?
Well, unless there's all out really horrible war, what we have so far is bad enough. But I'm talking about, armies marching around the countries of Europe. The markets are telling me this is not going to last much longer. You can see what's happening. Stocks are going up, oil is going down. I mean, somebody thinks that this is going to end fairly soon. If it doesn't, then first prepare for a horrible bear market. We're going to have a horrible bear market eventually. But if this turns into war, oh my gosh, I cannot remember any market that likes war.
Jim, you recently were talking to a bunch of first-time investors. And I believe your words were that they should stay informed and buy what they know, which is good advice. But if I'm in technology, let's say, and I buy all technology stocks, then I'm not diversified. So can you expound on what you meant by that?
Well, David, when I went to Wall Street, there were all these people who were educated and older and experienced. I thought they all knew what they were doing. It didn't take me long to realize they don't know any more than I do. True. We're all sitting here fumbling around together. But I finally learned, if you want to be a successful investor, stay with what you know. Everybody watching this knows something about automobiles or sports or fashion or something. Stay with what you know. And when something comes up that you know will be a positive change, do some research and buy the stock. And then send me an email, and I'll do research too. That's how you get rich. If I told you, David, you could only have 20 investments in your life, you wouldn't listen to hot tips. You wouldn't be jumping in and out of things every week. You would stay until you saw something that you knew was going to work. You would research it, you would buy it, you would own it for a long time, and you would know when to sell it. That's how you become successful. Jumping in and out, using hot tips, that's not going to work.
Well, you're right, Jim. And if you think about it, most wealth, real wealth in this world, is created by people who really aren't diversified because they're in an area, they specialize in that area, and they have a niche. But for average investors, everyone's told to diversify across the board regardless. So Jeff Small, Jim Rogers, it's been our pleasure. Thank you so much for being here today on The Income Generation.
My pleasure.
Thanks for watching today's video, 8 essential ingredients to a successful retirement plan. If you enjoyed it, click the thumbs up button to give us a like, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for new content each and every week.